How do you create reports from Microsoft Project? I'm Tony Zink, and this is the Project Guide. Hi folks, thanks for taking the time to join me today. If you wouldn't mind, jump into the chat and say a quick hello and tell me where you're from. I'm glad you could take the time to join me today. I've been working on projects, managing projects, and using tools like Microsoft Project for more than 20 years. And I've yet to meet a project manager who doesn't need to create reports for somebody. So today I'm gonna show you 7 different ways that you can create reports using the information that's already in your Microsoft Project schedule. Hopefully at least one of these techniques will save you a little time or make your life a little bit easier. So now that I've switched over to my computer screen, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So what you should be seeing on your screen here is a Microsoft Project schedule. I've created this ahead of time, and it's broken into several different phases. This happens to be a project where I'm a project manager, and I've been chosen to run a project where I'm going to be responsible for managing the installation of some electric vehicle charging equipment at a resort called the Beachcomber Resort. And so this project has several different deliverables, such as equipment selection and purchase complete, designs and permits complete, contractor bids and selection, and so forth. And you can see that it's organized into several different phases here. And I even have personnel or resources that I've assigned to each of these tasks in this project. Now, what I'm going to show you here is 7 different ways that you can use to extract information out of this project schedule, or a project schedule like this, if you already have it built and you already have resources assigned and perhaps even costs in your project schedule. So the first technique that I'm going to show you involves using some built-in features in Microsoft Project called views. Now a view actually has a few different components. This that we're looking at on the screen here is the Gantt chart view. This is just one example of several different views that you can use to see the information in your schedule. The Gantt chart view is probably the most commonly used one of everybody that I've ever worked with. So this particular view has a left-hand panel and a right-hand panel. The left-hand panel is what we call the table portion of the view, and the right-hand panel is the Gantt chart portion of the view. It's basically a visual representation of your tasks and milestones on a timeline. And this is just one example of several different views that come in Microsoft Project. This is an example of a Gantt chart view. Here's an example of a calendar view that shows the tasks and milestones again in your Microsoft Project schedule, but it just displays them in a different format. In this case here, it shows them on a calendar rather than on a timeline like we saw in the Gantt chart. Network diagram view is another example of a view that comes built into Microsoft Project. Again, it shows the tasks and the milestones in your project schedule, only it shows them in more of a process flow diagram type of a format rather than a calendar or a timeline. Now, these views, and these are just a few examples, these views can be used as reports if it shows the kind of information that you're interested in the kind of format that you're interested in. So a few different ways that you can use this information for a report would be, one example quite simply would be to use the snipping tool to take a screenshot of your view of information in your project schedule. And you could just simply, maybe use the built-in snipping tool that comes in Windows and just simply select the information in the view that you want to see, and then you can copy that and paste it into a Word document or a PowerPoint slide or what have you. Of course, everything that you need to be able to show in your report needs to be visible on the screen in order for you to be able to screenshot it. Now, it might be that in a detailed project schedule like this one, maybe you don't need to see all of that detail in a report, so maybe you have it organized into phases and you can collapse those phases down so that you can see everything on one screen, and then you can screenshot it. Again, same holds true for a calendar view. If this shows the information that you need to show, because maybe you only need to see a few weeks at a time in your presentation, then you can just simply screenshot this and paste this into whatever medium you're using to share the information. Another way that you can share this information is by using the built-in features that are in Microsoft Project that we can use to create a PDF of our schedule. You can find this back by clicking on the File tab up here across the top of your Microsoft Project window and going into the Backstage area. in this backstage area, there's an export option where we can create a PDF version of this file. Now, we can't exactly see what it looks like right now, so we could use trial and error to get the kind of report that we want. Or as a little trick, you can go over here and select the print option. This will give you a print preview of what you're going to generate when you create a PDF. And so if this looks the way you want, then you can simply just switch over here to the export area, click the create PDF, and that will generate a PDF for you. Maybe I'll just drop that on my desktop. And then if I go back to my desktop and open that up, okay, it needs a little tweaking, obviously, but it can be fairly simple to create a PDF version of your project schedule. And you can do that whether it's a Gantt chart, or you can do with a calendar or a network diagram or what have you. You could also print as well. Now, here's another type of a view that I find pretty interesting and a lot of people find pretty useful. You've got a couple of different resource usage views and task usage views that come built into Microsoft Project. In this resource usage view, this shows us a nice breakdown of each resource that's being utilized in your project schedule. So in this case here, I have an electrical contractor who's assigned to some tasks. I have an installation engineer who's assigned to several tasks, a marketing specialist, and don't forget the project manager in your project schedules. So I have several resources, and it shows a breakdown not only of the tasks, the individual task assignments for each one of them, but also over here in the right-hand panel, I see a detailed breakdown on a timeline of the work hours that are assigned to each one of those people on each one of those tasks. You can adjust this timeline to show daily detail if you need to see that kind of excruciating detail, or you can show weekly numbers, or you can show monthly numbers. Whatever you need from a reporting perspective, you can select the time scale there to show you the granularity that you need. And then you could, like I said, you could screenshot this, you could PDF it, you can print it out. Now, let's go back to the Gantt chart view. That was option number one, to create a view or to tweak a view that's already built into Microsoft Project and screenshot it or PDF it or print it. If you want to see something visual on a timeline, okay, and you want to see something that's even more summarized than what we can see here in the Gantt chart, there's a timeline feature that we can use in Microsoft Project to show a nice, clean, summarized view of everything that's going on in our project and when it's going on. If you go up here to the View ribbon, there's a Timeline option, and you'll notice that it opens up a panel on the top side of the on Microsoft Project window, and it's empty initially. But what I can do is I can start going through my project schedule, and I can right-click on any given task or milestone and add that item to the timeline. So you can do that one at a time, right-click, add to timeline. Or, let me just undo those two additions. You can select a number of items from your Gantt chart, from the left-hand portion of your Gantt chart, the table. Right-click, add to timeline, and you add multiple items like that. But be careful here, because if you add too much stuff to your timeline, like let me just select my entire project schedule here and add everything. Right-click, add to timeline. It can get really messy really fast. So what I would recommend that you do here, if you're going to use this feature, is just selectively pick line items out of your project schedule, maybe summaries, or that would typically represent phases in your project. Add those to your timeline. Maybe milestones, like for deliverables, important deliverables. Equipment selection and purchase complete. Right-click, add to timeline. See, it'll add those to your timeline and give you a nice clean view of not only the major phases, but also the major deliverable milestones that are important from a reporting perspective. You can then take this and either screen capture just this portion of your window and paste that into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so forth. But you can also, if you look up here in the Timeline Tools Format area, there's even a built-in Copy Timeline feature. And it gives us three different options here. I can copy this for email, I can copy this for presentation, or I can copy this full size. Now, basically these are just three different sizes for depending on where you're going to paste this timeline when you're done. I'll pick the middle one for presentation, and it just copies it to my Windows clipboard. If I then go into a PowerPoint slide and paste this, you can see here now that I've got an appropriately sized timeline in my slide, and I can even take this and I can manipulate it further if I want. If I want to take these boxes and move them around or resize them or reformat them or color them, I can do that. This isn't like a screenshot that's frozen. These are individual shapes that I can select and manipulate. Just for comparison, if I go here and go back to my project schedule and select copy timeline for email, and then go back to my PowerPoint slide, I pasted it right on top of the other one. That was nice. You can see here that it's a lot smaller. And if I, again, go back to my project schedule, copy timeline full size, and then go back to my slide deck. Let me move this other one out of the way. See, I learned from my mistakes. And then paste it in here. You can see that this one, this full size one, is larger. It's actually even too large to fit on my PowerPoint slide. So you've got a few different options there to pick from. So timelines, that's another way that you can generate information that you can use in a report, whether you're pasting that into a Word document or a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint slide or something else entirely. The third technique that I'm going to show you is, once I close this timeline panel here, is copying from a table. So in this Gantt chart view, if I pull my slider or my divider over here to the right, I can see that the left-hand panel is a set of rows and columns. We call that a table in Microsoft Spot project terminology. So this table portion of the view, I can just select any of these cells, any or all of these cells, and copy them. And then if I want to paste them into Excel, because that's my reporting tool of choice, Microsoft Excel, then I can do that. Although notice here that it doesn't appropriately size the column widths based on what I pasted into those columns. So there's going to be some formatting required here or some touch-up required. It's not difficult. You can just select these columns and do a little resizing there. I'll want to do the same thing with the rows, and it's not that difficult, but it isn't plug and play exactly. Now, if I go and try to paste this into a Word document, it does look much nicer. So if that's an option for you to use Microsoft Word rather than Excel, then that'll work. That should work for you. Back to PowerPoint here. If I just clear out this slide and then paste into here, again, I've got a really nicely formatted table. It's still dynamic, so if I want to change formatting, it's not a screenshot. I can go in here and do anything I need. I can select text. I can add formatting and so forth. It might be a little bit difficult to see there, but the point here is that this is an editable table once I've pasted it into Word or PowerPoint or even Excel. So in Microsoft Project, we have lots of different tables that we might copy information from to paste into what will become our report. The most obvious one here is the table that's in the left-hand portion of my Gantt chart view. But another view that has really useful information in it, in a table format, is again this resource usage view. On the left-hand side, I've got my list of resources or people that I'm utilizing in my project, like concrete contractor, electrical contractor, installation engineer, and so forth, with a detailed breakdown of the tasks that they're assigned to. And then over here on the right-hand panel, breakdown of hours again. Now, if this is a report where I want to generate maybe a weekly or monthly breakout of who's doing what and when, then this is a nice view that I can just copy from this table. I can select individual cells, or I can click in the upper left-hand corner over here and do a copy. I just did a Control-C on my computer keyboard, and then paste this into Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Again, if you paste into Excel, you're going to have this issue where you might need to resize columns and rows. But you have the data there that you can do whatever you want with. Let me point out here something. You'll notice that it only pasted the contents of the left-hand panel in the Microsoft Project view here. Okay, I can't include in my selection anything over here in the right-hand panel where the timeline is in the detailed breakout of work hours. If I want that as well, then I'm going to have to select over here in the right-hand panel and copy. Now, if I right-click, there's no copy option there, so I'll just use my Control-C on my computer keyboard Of course, you could also go back here to the task ribbon and hit the copy button there. Go back over here to Excel, and then I'll do a Control V to paste. Now here's a little gotcha. If you're using this technique, notice that when I pasted the first set of information, it added column headers for me, resource name and work in this case. When I pasted the information from the right-hand panel, the detailed breakout of work hours by time period, it did not add the column headers for me. And therefore, the data is not lined up with the rows on the left-hand side. These hours go with the concrete contractor. So if I want to undo that, let me do a Control Z and just go down one cell and then do a Control V. Now my rows are lined up. So beware. Make sure you drop down one row because the column headers are not going to come along with it. And then you'll need to go ahead and put in your time period headings across the top, just like you have in the left-hand set of information with resource name and work. So that's technique number 3, copying from a table. Now, there's another way that we can get information out of Microsoft Project and transfer it over into Excel, and that is saving a project schedule as Excel. So let me go back here and back to the Gantt chart and just explain something to you here really quickly before I show you this feature. There's basically 3 different types of information, 3 different types of data in a project schedule. There's tasks, like we see here in the Gantt chart view. There are resources that we can see in an area here like the resource sheet. Here's our resources, concrete contractor, electrical contractor, and so forth. And then there are assignments. And these are the types of things that we see when we go to a resource usage view. All these line items that are below each resource name, those are assignments for that resource. Another type of a usage view that comes in Microsoft Project is a task usage view. It shows us assignments, only they're organized a little differently. So in this case here, we have a list of tasks, and then which resources are assigned to each task. In the resource usage view, we have a list of resources, and then the tasks that are assigned to each resource. But the moral of the story here is we've got 3 different types of information in a project schedule that we might export out to Excel. We've got tasks, we've got resources, and we have assignments. So let me go back here into the Backstage again by clicking the File tab and hit Save As. And then let me just pick an area on my desktop here. And then if I go down here to the Save As Type option and pick Excel Workbook rather than a project MPP file, it's going to walk me through an export wizard that's going to ask me what type of information am I going to want to export out to Excel. So I'll click Next here. I'm going to select the data that I want. I'm going to create a new map. And in this case here, what this means is a map is a predetermined set of information that you know that you want to export from Microsoft Project out to Excel. Although this is the first time we're doing this, we don't have a map already defined, so we're going to create a new map. So we'll hit Next. And here's why I went through the explanation of the tasks versus the resources versus the assignments. We have the option of exporting all 3 or selectively, just tasks or resources or assignments. I'm going to just do tasks and click Next. Then it's going to ask me which fields, which task attributes do I want to send out to Excel. And then it'll give me the option to select, like I want to send out the name for each task. I want to send out the start date for each task. I want to send out the finish date for each task. And I'll send the % complete. And then finally, maybe I want to send out the, let's see, where are you here? Resource names that are assigned to each task. Then I'll go ahead to the last step. If I want to save this because it's something that I want to do over and over again, then I'll click the Save Map button. Otherwise, I'll hit Finish. And it should have created an Excel file and dropped it on my desktop. Let's go see. Sure enough, there it is on the cleanest desktop I've ever had ever. Here's our export from our Microsoft Project schedule. And so you can see here that it's raw data. It is not formatted at all. The columns were even narrow, but here's the data that I can do anything I want with now. If I would have said that I wanted resources and assignments also exported, then we would see 3 different tabs across the bottom of my Microsoft Excel window. task table, resource table, and assignment table. But since I only selected tasks, this is what we have. So now I can do whatever I want with this. I can format this. I can filter, group, sort, create a chart, whatever I want with this. Okay, back to my Microsoft project schedule. There you are. Visual reports is another tool that I'll just touch on here for a moment. We're going to spend some time up here in the report ribbon. If you have a recent version of Microsoft Project, then you have the report ribbon where you have several different options for creating reports, including visual reports. Now, I'm not crazy about the Microsoft Visio visual reports, but the Excel visual reports can be quite useful. If you click the All tab here, it just shows you all of these, several templates that come built into Microsoft Project. So let me just select one of these. You can explore these and see if there's any of these that will work for you. But just as an example, let me pick the Resource Work Summary Report and click the View button. Oh boy, an unknown error has occurred. Fantastic. Let me just restart Microsoft Project here. Welcome to the wonderful world of Microsoft. I'm going to save my changes, and let me go back and restart and reopen my project schedule. Okay, let's try this again, folks. Go to the Report ribbon, Visual Reports. Here we go. Hide Visio. Pick the Resource Work Summary Report and View. Well, unfortunately, I can't show you this here today, folks, because Bill Gates has decided that I don't need to see the Resource Work Summary Report. Let me just try one other one here. Here we go. Apparently, I'm not allowed to see that report. So any of these Excel visual reports that you generate from Microsoft Project, it's going to create an Excel file here for you. That's what we're looking at here. It launched a new Excel file, and there's two worksheet tabs, a resource usage and a chart tab in this case. So on the resource usage worksheet tab, basically what I have here is a pivot table. So if you're familiar with pivot tables, you'll know that when you click into this table up in the upper left-hand corner, you have a panel over here on the right-hand side where you can control what shows up in this pivot table. Like maybe I don't want remaining availability, and blammo, it's gone. Maybe I want to add cost, there it is. And then we have a chart that automatically is attached to that pivot table, and it updates when I make changes to that chart, or to that pivot table rather. So this is just an example of one of these several visual reports that come built into Microsoft Project. So you can explore those and see if any of them will work out for what your reporting needs call for. Let me close this and go on to the next method here, the dashboard reports, also on the report ribbon. These are relatively new to Microsoft Project. They've been around for a couple of versions now. So if you have a really old version of Microsoft Project, you're not going to see these. But once you see these, you're going to want to upgrade. So these are several different reports that are beautifully designed on what I just call a canvas. And it's basically just a set of charts and tables that you can rearrange. Notice this is just simply drag and drop. You can modify these charts, and you'll notice if you're familiar with pivot tables and pivot charts in Excel, when I click on one of these charts or one of these tables, a panel opens up over here on the right-hand side of my screen where I can make changes to that chart in real time. There's also other formatting tools up here on the Report Tools Design ribbon where I can add images and shapes and add new charts and tables and so forth. So I would recommend that you go through these. Here's a project overview report that has a nice brief overview of some key information in your project schedule, like milestones and milestone completions and late tasks and so forth. This project is scheduled in the future, so there are no late tasks. There are resource reports, like a resource overview report. And again, these are all drag and drop, very easy to configure, very, very easy to rearrange based on your needs. So very, very nice, very powerful reports that are available here inside of Microsoft Project. The final technique that I'm going to show you is using a thing that we call VBA, or Visual Basic for Applications. if I go back here to the, well, first let me just go back to my project schedule and go back to the Gantt chart. Okay, now I have this, again, this project schedule with several tasks, and I have resources assigned to each one of these tasks. Maybe I have a requirement, a reporting requirement, where I need to generate an extract from my project schedule broken out by person, all of their task assignments in Excel that I can then easily distribute, maybe via email. So if I go up here to the project ribbon, I'm sorry, let me go here to the developer ribbon. This is a tab that you can enable just by going into the backstage and customizing your ribbon. And I have a VBA macro that I've created. And what this does when I run this, it's basically a little computer program that grabs data out of this project schedule and it sends it over to Excel. So let me just run this program and it'll open up Excel automatically. And as you can see here, it's automatically populating all these task assignments for each person into an Excel file that I can now send off to people. Each person on my project, the technical writer, the project manager, and so forth, they each have their own tab in this worksheet. And they can now look at this and see, okay, what's the ID number from the project schedule? What's the name of each task? The scheduled start date, the scheduled finish date, and the % complete. So you could use this as a dispatch report or other type of a assignment report. And this is just one example of a number of different things that you can do using VBA to extract information out of your project schedule and send it to other places. You can use it to automatically fire off emails to people. You can take this data and send it to a database. There's many things you can do with this. So to wrap up, here's a few takeaways that I'll leave with you here today. First of all, if you're not already comfortable using and manipulating views, tables, filters, and groups in Microsoft Project, then get comfortable with it. They can be a bit confusing and overwhelming at first, but once you know them inside and out, they'll become very powerful tools for you to use for managing your projects and creating reports. Number two, if you're not taking advantage of the dashboard reports that I just showed you in Microsoft Project, then spend some time exploring them and figuring out how they work. The ones that come built into Microsoft Project are really useful, and some of them show some pretty interesting information about your project. If you see something in one of the built-in reports and wonder, how did they do that? Just click on that report element. It's usually just a table or a chart, and use the panel that opens up on the right-hand side of the report canvas to reverse engineer how it works. And finally, all this assumes that you're using Microsoft Project, but not Project Server or Project Online. If your company does use one of these tools, then most of these techniques may be unnecessary since you have a whole different set of tools available to you. Tools that you can use to build one-time reports or run them automatically or on demand anytime you need them. If you'd like to learn more about that, then just let me know. So, thanks again for spending this time with me today. I hope that you find this information useful and worth your time. Before you go, just a quick reminder. If you're not tuning in directly on my website, tonyzink.com, then you can go there to get this episode and others like it. You can find links there to follow me and get updates on social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. People still use Google+. And find other goodies there too on my website. So until I see you next time, go back out there and build some cool shit.